Okay, we can start at something pretty difficult and tough, uncomfortable maybe. I'm thankful for my brother today who's here with me. It helps me to have a non-abstract audience, and the material is also something that we've been grappling together. So he's doing me a favor by being here, listening. So the uncomfortable part where we can start is this dilemma in the context of informed consent. The basic theme or what this piece is about resenting the other who needs care. So it's about caring and care work. And we will think about context for that, but we're also just simply about caring. We have healthcare professionals, for instance, but there's also a wider and a deeper philosophical context for the question of care. What should I care about, and how do I care about it? How can I care about it? How do I do that? That's a question that can take you the distance. So Socrates, who claimed that he knew nothing, the other thing that he claimed was that he knew how to care. He knew the erotic art, Tars Erotica. He knew what to care about and how to care about it. So it's a specific kind of knowledge. The uncomfortability that gives a kind of jumping off. And in this process, I tend to and I will give uh, shorthands or like tools for thinking. I'm becoming increasingly fond of them myself, and they are nice kind of takeaways to take. They always provoke thought, and anecdotes function in a similar manner. So, starting somewhere vulnerable, and I'm not wearing a shirt to just kind of get in the mood for that. That this is vulnerable material. It's not easy to be with, and there's a there's a there's benefit in disrupting a little bit the frames in which we approach things so that we don't have that knee-jerk reaction of I know what's being spoken about, that it can have a resonance that is a little bit raw or more naked. So informed consent is the tricky area, and it's what we were speaking about now, thinking about spiritual teachers, different controversies that they come into crossing boundaries and the like. But I like the framing that's given by a man, Andrew Feldmar, who's a psychotherapist, in his thinking about psychedelic assisted therapy. The issue he raises, or the dilemma that he hopes to point to, is that you can't give informed consent for transformational experience or for transformation. Because the transformation implies that who you're going to be after the transformation is not who you are now. So if it's truly going to be transformational, you can't pre-access where you're going to be delivered to, um, and give consent in order to be delivered. So it's like just making kind of concrete the terms and the dynamics and bringing out the problem. So he's bringing that problem out in the context of psychedelic assisted therapy, where you get the participant to, it's like a requirement that they give informed consent. But then he's like, what are they able to consent to? The problem is more general. Um, John Vervaeke points to the work of Ale Paul a lot here in terms of transformational experiences, or or I don't know if I'm getting there in terms of, I think that transformational experiences. Um, and then he makes it kind of more applicable to life. It's like the decision to have a child, or to get married. There are these moments in life that we kind of can't give informed consent for before. So that this came out in the context of a spiritual teacher is that whatever we might be pointing to when we say that, it's someone who's pointing towards like your deepest potential for transformation. And so there's inevitably boundaries that are going to be crossed because there might be the sense that a kind of ultimate dissolution or delivery is what's intended. So how to make safe that manner of relationship is not It's something that culture will inevitably always wrestle with. Culture and individual relationships. So, in the context of this philosophical question of what to care about and how to care, now putting this specifically into caring for the other. So, taking outside of a uh, philosophical reflection per se, and now into like practice. So this has relevance to people whose practice involves caring for others, but then it also has relevance to anybody who lives and endeavors to care for another, for the other. We make it more specific by, and this is where that vulnerability piece comes in. It's a by resenting the other who needs care. So the context of care and then grappling with resentment in that context. Um, this also coming from Andrew Feldmar. Andrew Feldmar is a student, or he called himself a disciple, I think, of R.D. Laing. R.D. Laing is a like famous for his anti-psychiatry. I love one of his books, Knots. Um, I don't know if it's I'm disappearing. But I'm trying to show that there, yeah. It's a collection of tangles that we get into in relationships. So he's in a psychotherapeutic and then like reaching the edges of that context. And so he wrote like a bunch of formulas of the different relational knots that we can get into. That's going to be one of the takeaways that I want to kind of give is one version of a knot that I formulated myself, but I think that is just an iteration or an instance of a universal pattern. We'll get to that in a moment. Excuse me. The thing that gets us going is this uh, resentment and care. So Andrew Feldmar asks you to consider. He says to consider or to look at the resentment that we can have for somebody who needs care or who needs to be cared for. Now, reasons for that might be that oneself has not been cared for sufficiently, and so that you are wounded, and now there's the requirement that there's someone else who, excuse me, who needs care. There will be there's the possibility that there's a taint or an inability to fully offer that care because one has not been cared for in that manner. So you resent the fact that you haven't been cared for, and then you resent the person. So he was looking at people who are struggling in society and identifying this kind of pattern. Um, there's so he ends up because he's coming out of the anti-psychiatry movement as like a deeper quest for the alternative and also like really wanting to get to the ground of human connection and interaction. So even in the framing of like a therapeutic context, there's a bunch of relational framings and containings that are set up, and he would frame it that inevitably in the therapeutic context that um, the context affords the interaction and a new kind of relationship for the person coming into therapy, but ultimately the therapist wants to break down that context so it can become a space in which there's the projection of like parental relationship or whatever's being worked with, but the therapist is trying to inevitably break down that first containing, and that's conceivably when the therapeutic relationship ends. Now it becomes the question of thinking about what is it after that? What kind of relationship is there? And therapists get into this kind of dynamic. It can become recognizing like that there can be this teacher relationship, or it can come into friendship. Sometimes it gets complicated in a sexual sense. These things are living problems that therapists, as far as I can see, uh, grapple with. When if we think at the scale of society, there's a cost of living. So because there's this latent kind of resentment ultimately for people who need care, our care can come in this like a conditioned way. So someone's struggling, they need care. We are able to justify caring for them if they meet some kind of prescription of ours. So if they are willing to tarry with the program that we uh, deem or think will be the resolution to their problem, to what's wrong. And if they don't follow that prescription, we can be justified in that they don't want to get healthy, like they don't want to be better. And so we can withdraw, we can feel justified in withdrawing our care. So I'm just pointing here to a motivational structure that might be there and that will be uh, present for the individual, and that will take a cultural expression as well in terms of this resentment for someone's process. What Andrew Feldmar and that school is also really honoring is that there's an organic intelligence in terms of uh, the impulses or symptoms or tendencies of someone who's sick. And if you allow that organic impulse, which might be like quite deep in terms of the manifestation at the moment, to find its way through, the track of healing is found or locked onto. So the kind of uh, thinking, or what that relates or what that translates into in terms of activity and structures of life. He's coming from a Canadian context, is they set up like experimental safe or care houses where there was somebody who's had no help, or like had no therapy, just hasn't been successful for them. They are offered a place in a house, and the house, there's no requirement for therapy, for medication, like no prescription. It's just somewhere to be. It's honoring the organic intelligence of the process. Um, and then that's that. You obviously need certain state structures and a degree of economic welfare in the state in order for that to happen, but also not. We can like a nice thing to think alongside of this is the shamanic type of expression, or just type. So sometimes a healer, the process of becoming a healer is being sick, having to isolate or be excommunicated, and then discovering in oneself the manner in which one gets better, and then being able to offer that to others because there's been that personal journey and discovery. That's just a shorthand to think that type. Coming more into a cultural frame that is more familiar to a Western, modern, industrial, secular context. The safe house is similar, perhaps a similar kind of logic. It's like there's an organic intelligence in this person who's going to or is able to deliver them from uh, the rut.
So what?
Yeah.
Sorry, just what do you then like? Um, so what's on my mind now is that then that it would lend itself then for the next iteration of that thing to then fall into the same trap of like, okay, um, I went through the process of being sick and then finding what it is that healed me, and now I can offer it. And then the one who it's offered to, now they have to conform to the way that you're offering it. So like, yeah, it seems like a dilemma. uh unless that shamanic type that you speak of is readily available to everyone, and then if that is then primary or like overarching principle, then
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. And I see it's like I have a few thoughts about it, which is why I'm stumbling. There's like a way to um it's also the uh because it's going to have many expressions or manifestations. Like an individual might come with a kind of ailment that can be supplied with a prescription or like a formula, and it is effective. It helps them. Like there's been a little pain that's accumulated, and then a little remedy and a prescribing it helps that ailment, and then they can fit back. They can integrate pretty easily back into the flow of a wider culture. But for people for whom there's been like a very like a total destabilizing, that kind of prescription might not be effective or helpful. And so like the more intense the
yeah,
sickness becomes, the more there's like the selection towards a type that might only be able to resolve itself via and I don't I'm not sticking to this claim of I really appreciate the honoring organic intelligence, but I want to complexify it a bit, and it's why it's in the context of the other, resenting the other who needs care. It's why it's in the context of relationship. But the that that when the in our context, in the South African context, people who the traditional or cultural understanding of people who go to initiate or who enter a process of becoming a traditional healer. They're spoken about as being sick. And it's like when your calling is most pressing, and when you are in the most denial about it, you are the most sick. And so there'll be like there'll be, when there's a degree of deliverance from that condition, you speak back about it as being like, yo, you met me when I was sick. Like I was, and like that's a, uh, uh, dynamic. But I appreciate yeah, and that what you pointed to, I think it happens. It happens. But this is where we can press the question of what is it that is discovered? Like what is it that delivers one? So it's not the case. What you were questioning now is not the natural assumption or tendency for everyone who becomes sick. It's that like everyone,
uh,
so, someone's process of healing isn't going to put them into the position of becoming a healer.
yeah, yeah.
Uh, yeah, thank you for that. The so an anecdote then from this Feldmar guy from um the the that safe house. So there's this guy, like younger, middle age, really depressed, wasn't integrating into society, no therapy working, offered a space by Feldmar in this home, and he spends like a year and a bit in his room, just isolated, nothing. After a year, he um he one morning he smells bread being cooked in the kitchen, and he smells this, and the thought occurs to him, it's like where there's bread being cooked, there's love. And then he goes downstairs and he shares some bread with with the people in the kitchen. And then it's kind of uh yeah, that's very much like a completion in his process, and then a reintegration into life, and uh, uh gets going. Uh, and then about 6 months on, when he's in like a regular rhythm of life, he's speaking with Andrew Feldmar, and Andrew's like, Can you tell me like a little bit about um why do you think you did that, or what did you get from it, or and the like gist of his response was like it was a necessary waste of time. So it's it's like a lovely it's a the honoring that organic intelligence is saying it was necessary, but then there's also the part of it was a waste of time. And this is where this is like the context that I'm picking up the resenting the other who needs care, or picking up the question of how to care for another, or caring. It's a so there's the broader context of what should we ultimately care about that can become like a philosophical thing, and then there's the practical um, that can come more into the house of relational dynamics, how to care for another. So the this is also something that can be highlighted in the psychedelic assisted therapy, and it was part of what prompted Andrew Feldmar's thinking about this stuff. He's like, when you're in a session with somebody and you are tripping and you're in that state of real vulnerability, it's intense. He says like there's just a basic question being asked by the eyes of the other, and that is, do you really care? Like, do you really care? And that's something that you can't secure. It's something that no like accreditation process or no qualification is going to finally secure. Like the latent incentive structures for the person being in that relationship and how they affect the motivation and the caring. It's like, no, honestly, I don't care. I'm just here because this is my job and like this is what I do. And when it comes down to it, like I know ways to help you and be in this process with you. But when we get to that, it's it's I have to admit that like there's this other incentive, a most motivational structure for me being here. So I don't
Yeah.
care in that degree.
Yeah,
Um,
so that's where we, sorry to interrupt again,
yeah.
that's where like the dilemma of um payment or like financial remuneration for spiritual stuff comes in, because then that other incentive is more prevalent. I think uh Sadhguru speaks about, I think he was talking to a doctor, and the doctor was saying how in the West, like 60% or whatever the number was of doctors are just chronically burnt out. And he responded quite simply by saying that um the reason they burnt out is because like they're not doing it as like that like self-offering. There's that other incentive, like it's a job and I'm getting paid, and so like that care element is kind of distorted.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The remuneration, the financial, the the nature of exchange, how the exchange happens. Um, it's it's so productive in the way that it brings out these kinds of dynamics. So it's I've learned a lot in terms of the way that I feel beholden to context or sources of teaching, or like how I can make that exchange. So like I think
Yeah,
I agree in the capacity for that. I mean, ultimately, I think it comes down to like the understanding of what the resources that one is given is for or are for, to the degree that it's like there's like it's a privatized to like a private accumulation and the fulfillment of my private desires is the degree to which like it can become imbalanced in a way. So now it's like an
yeah.
acquisition for this other project. And
Mm.
I mean, I bumped into someone who's been on a who's in their TWASA process now, and they're living on the street, and they it's like there's this real like reduction to nothing, um, And I think there can be there can be a learning there in terms of then the real um evaluation of like what this resource is for now that I've been given. It comes into more of like a stewarding. Um, it's also a way to like track kind of maybe commitment. I mean, this is a huge subject. Um, but I think it's precisely the kind of tension and difficulty that when you really think it, it exposes these dynamics. So it's like it's productive. It's fruitful. Um, and yeah, that I have like I think health in a similar way. Like it's exactly one of these things that like if you're given a terminal diagnosis, questions can become real enough for you that you're like, okay, wait, like what who is the authority over the body? Like what where am I deriving authority from? Um, and they can be yeah, it can function like that. Health. The feel free. It's it's always beneficial. So feel free to just um jump in at whatever point. I just I'll keep moving through like the flow of things, and whatever it provokes will be uh
Okay,
in it.
sure.
The so it's that difficulty. It's the difficulty of accrediting or certifying care that when it's like this it's this value that you ultimately want somebody to have, but it can't be prescribed, it can't be directly trained. But when it is had, it's like competence speaks for itself. Um, so it's like the doctor who cares about you. Um,
Mm.
in the Platonic dialogues, this often comes up because like the doctors maybe too much of a diversion, but like the doctor's knowledge can is not inherently good because it can harm and it can benefit. So his because he knows how to reorder the body, he knows how to disorder the body. So he has like knowledge of medicine, but also knowledge of poison.
Mm.
So then virtue or like justice is said to be different in that it is only good. So it's a kind of knowing that's more like the heat of fire, that it can only confer itself. Like the virtue of one can only make another more virtuous. Like it can't worsen their state. It can't harm them.
Uh,
It's a big theme in Platonic philosophy, and it comes around this question of like what is of benefit, what's what is it to be harmed, and what is of benefit, what's harmful and what's beneficial. And it's a question that reiterates, and it's in a similar flavor to this question of care, like what should I care about? And I mean, it's appropriate then, like we started by noting Socrates, like his art as a philosopher, besides knowing that he didn't know or that he knew nothing, was that he knew how to care. Um, and so, like a speaking about him as a midwife, also he's also like a he's caring for another and then caring for the other. There's like a delivery. There's a delivery of the other through something. Oh, okay. This was going to come like at the end of at least how I imagined this like pocket of material, and it's this question of like what is it to act for the benefit of another? So to care for another, like how do I truly care for the other? What is their good? How do I benefit them? Inevitably assumptions about this, and we got a flavor of it in terms of recognizing the other who needs care, and then seeing how our understanding of what it means for them to be cared for and their conformity to that program of care then allows us to be in that position of justification or non-justification for the delivery of our care, for our giving care. So if they don't follow the prescription that we agree to, then we can withdraw our care because we can say that their motivation isn't to get well. Like they don't want to be better. And so that little it's a picture of conditioned care, and it I'm suggesting that the it might be inherent to the position of woundedness, or like I've been wounded, I haven't been cared for, so when I see another receive that kind of care, like it's difficult for me to see that, or I resent that that person received what I haven't received. Which it's nice at this level of things to speak in these to speak in almost formulas. So maybe this is a good place for the knot. Um, that's like a it's kind of universal. Um, it's I was using the language of wounding, or the I'm the position. So again, I'm trying to express something like formulaic. So there's going to be a number of ways to like flesh it out or express it slightly differently. But there's a position of I'm broken or wounded, and then the now putting that in the context of the other, so putting it in the context of relation, that position is seeking its verification through or with the other. It can receive it can receive an affirmation of that position or of that posture, and then uh it's found its justification, it's found its source, or it's found its proof, so it can remain. If it finds a no in the other, then it can maintain itself by saying, I can't trust you now that you would say that because it's so obvious to my position that I am broken. So if you would like contradict that, you're falling out of trust with me because the basic position is yay, dog at
It's
my
a
feet.
dog.
Yeah, because the basic position isn't being questioned, or it's the position that's being moved from. So like you can put this into the context of, I mean, it's like biblical. It's like the fall. The basic condition of fallenness is not remedied. So it's everything that moves from it is going to have this dynamic of confirming, and never like root or be the untangling of the knot. So then the the question is then, well, it's about the untangling. It's about the untangling of the knot. This is where I'm saying that the question of care ultimately comes to how to care for the other. It can be spoken about where the identity structure that's being relied on that involves this sense of woundedness or brokenness, when it when it itself doesn't come into question, the its size or its existence becomes mediated by this game of praise or blame. It's like this conferring. It's a conferring of identity in that dynamic, which is a deep trap that can be fallen into, also from the position of the one who takes himself to be caring for the other who needs care. And this is where the question of what is ultimately of benefit, or how do I really care for the other? So where I'm thinking about There's one more anecdote that I wanna give. I was just playing with Botsy and Junior, and how it manifested in our fight. Not our fight. They were having a fight, and they used the dynamic to resolve the tension of their fight. I became the scapegoat of their tension. It's so Botsy or um the door closes on Botsy's toe and it hurts him. And then Junior's like, I didn't mean to do that. So and then it's like uh Botsy's like, this guy obviously has to apologize because he hurt me. So now I'm angry with him. And Junior's like, I don't need to take responsibility for anything because I didn't mean to. Like I didn't mean to hurt him. So like I'm not gonna take that blow. Like I'm not gonna lower myself and make the apology. Not in these words, obviously. So they end this tension with each other, and then I come between them, and I'm like, um, I just started interacting with them, and then the tension that is there gets like triangulated onto me, and now they both come at me with a particular kind of intensity, like they wrestling me and da da da, and we now like wrestling and stuff. Um, then I bunch them together because I'm still older and stronger, and I'm like rolling them towards the pool. I'm gonna drop them into the pool, and now they're hugging each other. And I'm rolling, and they're close there. They're getting all like frantic, and they don't want to get dropped in. And then I'm like, they're pleading with me to like stop or squealing. And then I'm like, okay, hang on. Isn't there something that needs to be said here? And then they're like, um, 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 trying to placate me, and I'm like, no, 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 not to me, not to me. And then exactly what I was talking about. I was like, "Oh, I'm sorry, Junior." And Junior's like, I'm sorry, Botsy. I'm sorry. So so that like a an anecdote of like a scapegoating. But there was and I might fumble a bit here trying to like draw like a relevance or use the story in some kind of way, but it's like uh the 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 being pushed towards there's something that they came together over or through, even in the scapegoating kind of way. Like they found their unity again in fighting me. And then but it's something that brought them together. Then when that which they were brought together over or through, when that took them to like an edge, when it took them to a certain intensity, they found the means for reconciliation between each other.
Hmm.
Like there was like this there's something deferred that gave the capacity uh for seeking like forgiveness with one another.
Yeah, that makes me think about um the sort of the Christian framework or cosmology, how um the demonic or Satan is uh acting under the will of God. And so in like in this context here, then like you become the Satan, say, and then through that, then there is reconciliation between the two. But then that is not complete. And so then that's when the uh glory or the uniqueness of the Christ comes in, and then how uh well, the word in my head is story, but like it's not, it's the wrong word. how his story shows that like when he is the scapegoat, like when he is scapegoated, when he is sacrificed, then there's like a completeness in the thing. And then if that image is like taken on the individual level, you know, and so like if Junior then understood that, and then you know, and Barty, and then the need for, and then in that sense the Satan is like defeated. There isn't a need for that scapegoating because it happens.
Mm, mm. Yeah, I think that's um okay. There's like riches in front of us. So it's like a there's the being united by a common enemy that requires the common enemy in order to maintain the unification, to maintain the unity.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so
exactly.
so like our enemy can unify us in that way. So
Mm.
it's other that we commune through. But then we get the question of a different manner of um that which we can commune through, be unified in our orientation toward, and that doesn't uh break, that doesn't like it brings us to that reconciliation with one another through our orientation to it or relationship with it, but that it doesn't and this is where it's like hard to articulate, or at least I'm struggling. Like it doesn't it doesn't require it doesn't require the it doesn't require a scapegoat, or it doesn't require an enemy in order to be reconciled. And for me, this is it's somewhere close to like the essence of the religious question. Like, what is it that we can achieve communion through, lasting communion through, what come together through? Um, and hey, it's nipped my foot.
Don't say
People
that. Yeah, the beasts from down below need
gotta bring them up. The so like just like I'm not gonna just so I don't conceal anything, because this was the last piece of um the pocket of material. It's like uh we can look in a structural way about how identity in Christ resolves this knottedness of the praise and blame. It affords a being with that is not being governed by that kind of dynamic, because that dynamic isn't conferring identity. I have my identity already.
Mm.
So it's easy, maybe it's easy to get that structure or how it might function. And then it's like then it's like practically functioning. Because if I was to be like um or there's a sense in which I could upskill in terms of just being like, we need Jesus. Like, it's like, okay, like what? How's that? Okay, I've heard that. Like that guy on the street told me that one time, and like, but like how? So then
Or when
it's
I try to bake that one time.
that when I try to bake,
Yeah, bro. It was such a big thing for you. Before we lived together in Grahamstown, you made try to make a cake and then you showed it to your friends and they were like, "This boy needs Jesus."
oh, I'd forgotten that element of it. I'd remember the meaningful part of it that stuck in memory was like uh it was a friend's recipe that they had made. Like they had made the recipe. It wasn't they'd made the like ingredients list and Jamie's lemon
Okay.
meringue. And then I was thinking about this difference between like things that are made or created and then unmade things or like uncreated things. And there was like a flicker of this recognition of an uncreated thing that came in the process of making the thing. I was like thinking about that.
Mm.
Um,
Mm.
so reading Plato at the time. And then I was like there was this moment where I was like, God. It is. I was like, and then I
That's
yeah.
yeah, that's it feels like this is the point to bring this in, like just listening to you. So earlier when you were saying you're talking about like a home and or like a safe house. I remember watching something on YouTube a little while ago. This guy, I think his name is Tyler or something. um, Rather crassly at times, but that's not the point. Um, he goes to places like Skid Row or whatever, and he just like interviews people on the streets, and he gets like a real like on the ground kind of report of like what's happening. The one place, I think it was San Francisco, not sure, but big homeless problem. And then you went to like a Christian safe house, and yeah, as you were speaking, I was just reminded of that in how like there's people on the streets everywhere, and there's this massive safe house, and there's like 4 floors of open beds, and there's like 5 people who stay there, and it's all because of that exact thing that you're saying. It's like, okay, we can help you, but you have to do this. You have to come to Bible study 3 times a day. You have to, and so like it is not working. um, and then the other part of which I think ties this all together nicely is the symbolism of bread. So the guy you're talking about who was staying in the safe house and then smelt the bread cooking, and then that's where love is. Um, the bread symbol is big in Christianity, and how you're talking about now, how there's like ingredients and then how the things come together, and and uh, the way things come together is like things should be kept apart, and the way they come together is Christ, because like when you make a loaf of bread, it's in a mold and it comes out a specific way. And if that way is not Christ, then it's the bread is like it's not good bread. Um, and so if you intend to make like a good loaf or a good meringue or something, then there's a very particular way in which the ingredients come together, and it's not like you can't do it. It's like God must make the loaf.
The boys have come out of Eden. Brother. Okay, dudes, give us. Yeah, I'm sorry. Maybe like 15, 20 minutes. We will have time. Do not worry. Yay. Okay, come. It's been 45 minutes. My phone's already full. 69%. Okay. I'll be with you now. Okay. I'm good. Thank you. I think I went. Okay, we'll go now. Okay, close there, guys. So interludes, the stuff of life. Yo, and then I forget the dog, and then it's all happening. Ah, um, yeah. The that first that first that safe house that just gets that's fantastic. I wanna go. I wanna like grapple with that a bit, and then the bread. Like so there's this yeah, because it comes to this question of and this is also like the final piece in the pocket of material. It's like it's the question of caring skillfully for the other as not knowing what's good for the other. Okay, but So then what is one caring for? And this is now it's philosophical. It's like what is to be cared about? Like what is worthy of caring? Or so the that aversion to that safe house because there's the sense of something being prescribed. But ultimately what the Christian wants to give is a person. It's like a person you can be in relationship with. So it's like trying to introduce you to someone. And then, but then it's like, oh, I'm gonna get involved in that, like the religious, uh, it, like you're right, that aversion or avoidance of uh the prescription. But so then this is how I think of the care or the benefit for the other, and it's through the logos, and it means that it's when the other is encountered, there's the necessity for a radical openness to the other. It's like you bringing in this question is exactly something that can't happen if I was speaking to myself. It's like that material, like I didn't have it. Like this mutual processing, this dual processing that we're doing. And then what we're doing is we're configuring ourselves towards that which shines between us. Like what can come between us. This what I'm saying is like the religious sacrament. I can only serve another person to the degree that I serve that thing, that reality, that person. So I follow what is intelligible and shining between us, but not in this way of like putting something behind the bush and then like trying to get there, but serving in a radical, open way what reveals as truth between us. And then what is true will reveal itself as true. So it's like it's this it's an orientation that is wanting to or is like honoring the personhood of Christ in that like like you don't talk about someone when they're there. Like it's like
Okay.
uh yeah,
So,
yeah.
so would you say that then that is what is like to care about or for?
Yeah, yeah, there's I've been cared for by Christ in that manner. So I know what unfailing care is. I'm loved in that way. I've I've made that admission. I've been brought into that love. So now I have like a context in which I can see my both one of how like I'm kind of not capable to give the other that love of that order. Um, so there's like an impotence, and then also like um uh I'm missing it a bit now, but like I'm not being governed by that same dynamic connected to an identity that wants to like confirm itself or that wants to like accumulate evidence or like justify itself. It's like it's a freedom from that relational play because my identity isn't in what can be conferred in this way. Like I'm set over something or I'm set under something. I'm endeavoring to move through this that shines between us. I think I got a little bit lost there. But I think I was answering. I have a sense of a rough like void in my head of a direction, but I'm not sure. You remind me
The I the other part of it, remind you?
the other part or the whole of it.
uh the symbolism of mana or bread or
Ah, the bread,
eating
the
of.
bread. But the in that question I was just now, um, I suppose like in the maybe it's just the desire to link the themes, and it's but it kind of came out there like the way that identity in Christ is a resolution, but then it's not enough. It's not enough just to point to the structure of how it can be a resolution. Well, that is enough, and that it's like the seed of the word. Um, but there's also a dimension of care that asks for like skill around that
Yeah,
introduction. Yeah.
yeah. So then what I kind of got from you is then, so then that is what is to be cared about or cared for, like nurturing that.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Nurturing and being receptive to and being transformed by. Because it's like it continually becomes the direction of commitment. In interaction, what I'm serving is what can come to shine between us intelligibly. Um, but that it's like I don't I I nurture and cultivate that, but I'm also cultivated by that. And I'm cultivated by it in relationship with another who's orientated towards it to a degree, to whatever degree.
I think of that meme again now.
The um uh say it again.
Yeah, I think it would have been cool if the preamble was recorded as well. um, the bear and the leaf, and then the bear says to the leaf while they're making sandwiches, "Hey, I just wanna nurture and be nurtured." And then the leaf responds like, "Okay, so are you ready to be known?" And the bear responds, "Look, no one is allowed to perceive me ever."
Are you ready to be known? That's yeah. Are you ready to be are you ready to be known? That seems like the yeah. I mean in this context it's like I'm ready to be known to the degree that identity structure that is moving from a ground of fallenness and so seeking self-justification or seeking justification or evidence for itself. That like ready to be known is to be known in that way, which is then always frustrating or incomplete because it has to continually find its its confirmation or its denial if it finds its confirmation in denial or and then it's like uh, identity, yeah, uh, uh,
But
uh,
that's the politics,
politics. Yeah,
identity politics.
that's oh wow, nice. Identity politics. Yeah. Hectic. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's this is that precious moment in dialogue where like the way that uh Viveki and Master Pieta, I've heard them express it as like the when like the um this relationship with silence and speech starts to starts to play. Like so the silence becomes like a communicative. Uh, there's like inversions at least in that. And that in itself is within that frame of like dialogical skill and something that I might be like erring in now by speaking. Ah, should we do it? Should we see the bread? Doing the bread.
Should we see the bread?
Or just in the context of the two things that you brought in, there was a safe house that nobody wanted to go to because there were Christians there. And then and then uh then the like calling card, like what broke this guy's isolation, where he was like it's necessary, but it was also a complete waste of time. The bread. I mean, so I guess then uh say more about the way that you're receiving that image, I guess, or if you want to, if that's appropriate.
Oh, yeah. Um, so then the how yeah, what words to use? Maybe like uh prescriptivist or religious or dogmatic or so that okay, so maybe like Christ and then Christian, maybe like the way that the that safe house was not working the way that it was intended, I suppose. Um, because of not maybe the caring was not done sufficiently. Like it was the introduction to the person of Jesus was not. There was like stuff in the way, maybe. Um, and then the image of someone being in that safe house, but that safe house not having any of those prescriptions, and then what was the thought, like where bread is being cooked, their love is, and then Jesus being sort of the perfect love, and then that meeting there with uh the bread or the love or like the food from heaven, um and that was then allowed to happen because of the way that the care was given, that wasn't so uh prescriptivist, um and then tying that into your experience of baking, not bread, but still the same image of like putting ingredients together, and then the way it came out was like you had the prescription, you had the recipe, but then what came out was not uh manna, or it's not like the bread from heaven, like the mold was not in the way that it could be, like it didn't meet the potential that it could have been. Yeah.
Mm, mm. There's a um the yeah the how to say no yeah the breaking bread, like there's a very like practical thing of just like um well, even just like how many well, the simple practice of like sharing meals, like breaking bread with one another. There's that communing through food, or over food, through like we come together over this meal. Um, and then like we draw different degrees of nutrition from it. There's the I want to get to this piece of like the
Sorry, oh, fuck.
Pause. Maybe I shouldn't have these on, or your voice is not gonna. So it's a difference. Um,
You just finish.
the response, then we can go like, but something about careful of the dog under there. Um, this is cool. Okay, I'm conscious of the boys now also on a bike ride. Um, the it's like the context we can come together in or through. And then your question, I was hearing more in terms of um like looking at the bread itself, like what is that bread? And then like the made bread and then the unmade bread, we might say. So I can put together ingredients and then it fits a mold. But it's like I was hearing like a there might be something like not unmade in that or like not complete in that manner of bread, like that context. Let's see if I hope the audio it should be good. Yeah.
So I think what I was talking about is having the maybe something like that identity in Christ, and if it's kind of anything other than that, in the way that the things come together, or that the ingredients, like the loaf, the mold of the loaf, is kind of withered, or
Yeah. Okay, then that was in the context of the safe house and also the guy coming down. So there's a way in which I think I can see or experience Christians in this frustration a lot because they have experienced the transformation of a lived personal relationship with Christ, and that they want to share it, but in sharing it, they can fall into this like presumption of prescribing. So it's like that aversion comes. And we can say like a motivation for that kind of aversion to the Christian could be like, I know what they're going to say or tell me or like offer me, and then they might also do it quite dogmatically, and then maybe even like a sense judgment in the way that they're doing it. But then the if uh, the if there's enough sharing of bread with one another, then the nutrition from the word that is shared, like it can begin to um, develop, so that it's like it's drawing something different from the word. This is where like the soil and the seed and the context in which the word is heard, and then it's like the readiness of the soil is God's timing, and then the placing, the readiness of the soil, and we can work to make our soil more ready, but the growing like of the seed, God's doing it. Yeah. So then it's just about like sharing the word, and then it's to everyone who deems that worthwhile to think about how that is done. And that's kind of where the context of or the question of care comes to me, and that's where I prioritize the logos as the living word of intelligence that shines between us, because we then, by the virtue of the truth of the thing, are moving in, through, and towards it. Yeah.
okay. I see. Thinking about hearing to not possessing. Have you covered everything?
Yeah. So we can say there's a resolution in the identity of Christ, but there's an how it can overcome that praise blame kind of dynamic. But then there's also a question of like skillfulness, appropriateness, and that comes to this question of not possessing the good for the other. So it's like I don't have the idea of what's good for you, but I relate with you, and then we follow something. Got some bread.
Yeah. The Eucharist. It's like I will say my sermon and all these things, but like I don't really know what's good for you. But this is the brain.
Yeah, you have to eat. You have to take it in, and yeah, I mean, sometimes the biblical languaging of like from milk to meat is used in terms of like what one derives from scripture. So it's like I can remember seeing the one morning in the home church. I saw the Bible, and it was like I was like I could eat that. Like, literally, I was like. It was strange. It was strange. I was like looking at it. That's a beautiful frame like that, because it's the transformation of love. Yeah, there's the thing to be taken in, to be consumed. And then there's the philia, like the friendship and the cooperation. And then agape, which there's just agape.
But the vertical love agape.
The Zizek talks about agape as political love, which is interesting because it's if you think about it as like the person making love, it's that initial posture of being forgiving that is wanting, or like the desire is to have that be the love of the community or of the body. So that's the basic presumption of relationship, which is like to everyone. It's hard to love. It's hard to, there's a certain, like, it brings in an interesting like consideration, because that's the saint who learns to love humanity but can't love a person. Like, so there seems to be a perfection of love in that, but there's other dimensions that are not kind of met. So then it might be like a structural communal thing. The way God is loving his people, making them a people, and participation in that love in that community. You want to come ride bikes? Delta.
You're right. No.
No, not gonna ride there. No walk. Should we say ciao?
Yeah.
Get the first like. Yeah. I hope the audio came through in this last bit. Thank you, who's ever listened and watched with us. It's at this point, it's intimate with you as well. So thank you.
You're massively
Coming together through this digital fire. It's like I love this way, like you can't coordinate this kind of like the way that the normally like in the same backdrop. Irish. Daniel, Eamonn, Kathleen, out of gold. Kathleen. Reality is. Happy to end.